What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlemania here, back with another video. With wrestlers traveling on the road 300 odd days a year, sometimes wrestlers had to amuse themselves by playing practical jokes on other wrestlers to kill some time. Over the years, ribbing became part of the culture of being a pro wrestler. Stories of X-Pac pooping in Sable's bag, or Owen letting off a pig in Vince's office. These stories capture the interest of fans as they show a much lighter side of wrestlers that you otherwise would never see on camera. Just a heads up, some of these stories will be narrated exactly the way wrestlers have told them. Number 5. Davey Boy and Owen Hart rib Lex Luger. Two of the greatest pranksters in the WWF pulled one over the WWF's new American hero, Lex Luger. It went down like this. We were in Virginia, and there were some plainclothes police officers there, and I had a water gun. I was shooting water at them secretly, and they were getting really mad. They approached me and asked, who was doing that? I said Lex Luger. They said, we would like to get him. I told him that he's driving the car tonight back to the hotel. Why don't you try to follow us? Lex is notorious for driving through stop signs and red lights. That night he was driving real good, so I yanked the wheel out of his hands and he was like, what are you doing? The police then sped up behind us in a ghost car. I told Lex it was Shawn Michaels and he was trying to race us. So he drove faster. Now the police were getting really mad. The cops put a light on the roof and Lex says, Davey, it's the police. It was me and Lex in the front and Owen Hart in the back. The police pulled us over. After taking his license and registration, the police walked back toward their car. I yelled out after him, blow it out your ass. The cop turned around immediately, walked back to our car and told Lex to get out of the car. Lex said, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. The officer looked in the back seat and asked Owen, who said it? Owen points out and says, it was Lex. The police officer takes Lex out of the car, spreads his arms and legs and pats him down. Then he says, he's got a gun. I had to put the water pistol in Lex's sweatpants and he didn't know it. I go to get out of the car to tell the police that the rib has gone far enough, and then Lex says, please, Davey, get back in the car, you're making things worse. The scene of all of this wasn't far from the arena they were wrestling at that night, and there were a bunch of wrestling fans watching. The best part about this story? Vince McMahon in his limo saw it all going down. Number 4. The Undertaker hates cucumbers. You might not know until now that The Undertaker is and always has been deadly afraid of cucumbers. His irrational fear of the green vegetable apparently stems back from when he was a child. If Taker sees a cucumber anywhere near him, he gets violently sick. His fear, however, had been used as an advantage to others ribbing him. One of them was his dearly departed close friend William Moody, aka Paul Bearer. During a fuel stop, Moody desperately needed to use the bathroom, but Taker told him to fill up the gas tank first before going. Well, Moody couldn't hold it in his tank anymore and he proceeded to empty it all over his leg and pants. Moody swore revenge on Taker. Whilst preparing for an upcoming show, Moody waited until The Undertaker was away from his dressing room and proceeded to fill his wool felt hat with cucumbers. When Taker returned, he violently vomited all over the dressing room. To Moody, revenge certainly was a dish best served cold. Number 3. Wrestlers give Jerry Lawler a nice welcome. Bret Hart told in a shoot interview with Kayfabe Commentary's 1992 timeline that it didn't take long for Lawler to have a number of wrestlers defecate into his crown. Bret Hart tells it happened at a TV taping in Sacramento. He didn't see who did the deed, but all he remembers it was near the showers on the floor. There he saw Lawler's prized crown filled to the brim, calling it an awful concoction of shit in that crown, with more than one person's you-know-what in there. According to Bret, Lawler kept playing a number of matches in the locker room, showing WWF wrestlers who were jobbers in his territory, such as Hulk Hogan losing to him in 1981. A lot of wrestlers including Hogan and Kurt Hennig were pissed off with him. In fact, there were many more ticked off with the self-proclaimed king. Bobby the Brain Heenan stated in Wrestling's Bad Boy Tells All that when Jerry Lawler first came to the WWF, there was some payback to be had. We had a show in Sacramento and I know at least 3 guys who shit in his crown, including The Undertaker and Steve Keirn. All those guys worked for him at one time in Lawler's promotion in Memphis and they weren't treated well. The rib could have happened more than once, as it's been told that the Clique shat into his crown during the 1996 Royal Rumble. Number 2. Ahmed Johnson thinks he's going on The Tonight Show. In the mid-90s, powerhouse big guy Ahmed Johnson made an explosive debut by body slamming Yokozuna and soon becoming the first African-American Intercontinental Champion. It was clear Ahmed was getting a massive push and seemed destined for big things in the WWF. Owen Hart, who was the WWF's resident prankster, and Davey Boy pulled a rib on Ahmed he would never forget. The pranksters called Ahmed pretending to be a spokesperson from The Tonight Show, revealing their interest for Ahmed to come on the show as a guest. Ahmed was so excited to be featured on the show, he immediately purchased a $4,000 suit specifically for the show. Ahmed anticipated the arrival of his limousine, ready to go on one of the biggest chat shows in America. Owen then asked him why his limousine hadn't arrived yet. It was at that point Ahmed realized he'd never told anyone about the timings, and then it hit him. He had been ribbed. Allegedly, Bret Hart laughed so hard he collapsed in a nearby bush. And number 1. Vince pulls one over on Coach. In an interview with Back Sports page, former WWE employee and now ESPN anchor Jonathan Coachman told one of the best ribs in wrestling history pulled by none other than Vince McMahon. He told in the interview, "What you read and heard was 100% true. The thing about WWE is you have to be accepted on many different levels. From 2003 on, I was one of the boys. If you were willing to put your neck on the line and get in the ring, that separates you from everybody else. Up until that point, I had to be accepted into the crew, so to speak." Basically, Jerry Briscoe came up to me in 2001 in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and he said he wanted me to run a football pool. $10 to pick all the games, and everybody did it. And I started on a Tuesday. It was a SmackDown taping. I'll never forget it. I had my own room I did interviews in, and all of a sudden 2 cops show up. They were very serious and said, "I understand you're running a gambling pool. You sold one to one of our undercover cops here. It's a felony in North Carolina, and we're going to have to take you in." So we're walking down the hallway and we stop in front of Vince's office, and they said we should probably let him know because you're not going to be here for a while. We walk in and it's Vince, Triple H, Stephanie, The Rock, Kevin Dunn and Jerry Briscoe. I should have known that with Jerry in the room, something was going on. But I was so terrified because I was 26 years old. The real cops proceeded to tell Vince they've caught me in a gambling pool and we need to take him downtown. Vince got in my face and he was an inch away from my nose. He was cursing, telling me my priorities were bad and spending company time to run a gambling pool. This entire riff lasted 45 minutes. At the end of the office bit, the officer said it was $1,500 to get me out, and Vince said fuck no, he's on his own. They handcuffed me and I asked if there was anything I could put over my face. Vince threw me a pair of sweaty gym shorts that got stuck on my face. I walked out of the office and the first person I see is the Undertaker. He looks at me with shock, and it was so real because no one else was in on it except those people in the office. They walked me out and all the fans could see me, and they drove me about a mile down the road, and I got a call on the radio that they had to come back to pick up something. They turn around and everyone's there with Vince in front of everybody laughing their asses off. Greatest rib in the history of the business, and for about 10 minutes I literally walked to a place in the building and started crying. I thought my career was over. I thought, how can I tell my dad I got fired over a $10 football pool? So guys, was this the greatest rib in wrestling history? Let us know down in the comments below. Would you like us to do a second part to this? Drop a like to the video if you do, subscribe if you haven't already, turn notifications on, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.